welcome to Daily Briefing. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah. July 21st, 2026.
Today, we're looking at a massive cyber campaign targeting NATO logistics, a major trade escalation with a 50% tariff on Canadian goods, and the Pentagon running critically low on cash. Also, if you're stepping outside in Parker, Colorado, it is currently 68 degrees and clear, heading up to a high of 91 with a low of 68 and winds around 11 miles per hour.
A hot one in Colorado, and some incredibly high-stakes news to get into today. So, let's get right to it.
We have to start with a highly sophisticated cyber espionage campaign that is actively compromising NATO and Ukrainian military logistics. Russian intelligence services are systematically hacking internet-connected security cameras across Europe and Ukraine.
This is incredibly alarming because it is not just about stealing data from servers. They're actually using public and private physical infrastructure, like everyday surveillance cameras, to watch troop movements and weapons shipments in real time.
Exactly. And according to cybersecurity researchers, the threat actors are exploiting known vulnerabilities in common IP cameras. Once they gain access, they can feed live video streams directly back to Moscow, giving them eyes on critical transit routes, rail yards, and military bases.
It really shows how the line between digital warfare and physical security has completely blurred. If you can hack a camera overlooking a highway in eastern Poland, you suddenly have a direct window into NATO supply lines heading into Ukraine.
And the scale of this is what is truly worrying. It's not just one or two cameras. This is a coordinated, systematic effort targeting thousands of devices across multiple European nations.
Which means governments and private citizens alike need to be much more vigilant about securing their connected devices. A simple, unpatched security camera on the side of a warehouse can become a national security threat.
Meanwhile, on the economic front, United States President Donald Trump has announced a massive 50% tariff on all Canadian goods, sending shockwaves through global markets.
A 50% tariff is an absolute bombshell for North American trade. Canada is one of the largest trading partners for the United States, and this is going to hit supply chains almost immediately.
It is a massive escalation of the administration's protectionist trade policy. The goal is clearly to force concessions and protect domestic industries. But the immediate fallout is likely to be felt by consumers in both countries.
Walk me through what this actually means for everyday products. If we are importing automotive parts, timber, energy, and agricultural goods from Canada, those are all about to get significantly more expensive.
They certainly are. Cross-border manufacturing, especially in the automotive sector where parts often cross the border multiple times before a vehicle is finished, could face severe disruptions. Industry groups are already warning that this could lead to higher prices for cars, housing materials, and everyday consumer goods.
And Canada is not just going to take this lying down. We can almost certainly expect retaliatory tariffs on American goods, which could hurt U.S. exporters, particularly in agriculture and manufacturing.
It is a high-stakes game of economic chicken. The Canadian government is already calling for emergency talks, but for now, businesses on both sides of the border are scrambling to figure out how to adjust to this massive policy shift.
While trade tensions flare up north, the Pentagon is facing a severe internal crisis of its own. Reports indicate that the Department of Defense is rapidly running out of cash due to the billions of dollars being funneled into the ongoing conflict with Iran.
This financial strain is reaching a critical tipping point. The intense operational tempo, missile defense deployments, and continuous naval presence in the Middle East have drained emergency funds much faster than anticipated.
So, what does that mean practically for the military? If the money is dried up, how do they keep operating?
Well, they're going to have to make some incredibly difficult budgetary reallocations. We're talking about delaying maintenance on ships and aircraft, cutting back on training exercises, and potentially pausing some long-term modernization programs just to keep current operations funded.
That sounds like a major risk to overall U.S. military readiness. If you are robbing Peter to pay Paul, eventually the rest of your global commitments start to suffer.
That is exactly what defense analysts are warning about. Congress is being pressured to pass an emergency supplemental funding bill, but with the current political climate, getting that through quickly is going to be a massive battle.
It is a stark reminder of the immense financial cost of sustained military operations, even for a defense budget as massive as the United States has.
Turning back to Eastern Europe, a Ukrainian drone swarm attack on Moscow has left 10 people injured, and notably, 3 of those injured are Chinese nationals.
This is a significant development because it brings the physical reality of the war directly into the Russian capital once again, but the inclusion of Chinese citizens adds a very delicate diplomatic layer.
It really does. Beijing has maintained a somewhat neutral but supportive stance toward Moscow throughout this conflict. Having Chinese nationals injured in a Ukrainian strike on Russian soil could complicate Kyiv's diplomatic efforts and potentially anger Beijing.
Do we know what the drones were targeting? Was this a military facility or just a broad strike on the city?
Russian officials claim the drones were intercepted, but debris fell on residential and commercial areas, causing the injuries and physical damage. Ukraine has increasingly targeted Moscow to bring the war home to the Russian public. But the geopolitical fallout from this specific strike is going to be watched very closely.
Coming up, we will head over to India to look at high-profile protests over exam leaks and a tragic tunnel collapse in Sikkim. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Turning now to India, political tensions are boiling over in New Delhi. Congress leaders Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi led a major protest outside the Prime Minister's residence, demanding accountability over recent national exam paper leaks.
This has become a massive political issue in India. Millions of students rely on these competitive national exams for their future careers, and these systemic leaks have completely shattered public trust in the educational testing system.
The opposition is putting immense pressure on the government, arguing that the administration has failed to secure these critical exams, leaving young people stranded and hopeless. The government is promising reforms, but the protests show that the public anger is not going away anytime soon.
Meanwhile, in the northeastern state of Sikkim, we are learning more about the tragic tunnel collapse in Samardung that killed 10 workers. Sources are now pointing to a methane gas leak as the trigger for the disaster.
This is a devastating update. The Himalayan region is notoriously difficult for infrastructure development due to its fragile geology, and this methane leak highlights the extreme, hidden hazards that workers face during these massive excavation projects.
It really raises some serious questions about safety protocols and geological surveying before these projects begin. 10 lives lost is a massive tragedy, and there will undoubtedly be calls for a thorough investigation into whether this could have been prevented.
On a much more positive note for India, the private aerospace sector is celebrating a major milestone. A representative from NASA has publicly praised the Indian private firm Skyroot Aerospace on the successful maiden launch of its Vikram 1 rocket.
That is a huge nod of approval from the world's premier space agency. Skyroot is really putting India on the map for private space exploration, showing that it is not just state-backed agencies making waves in orbit anymore.
The Vikram 1 is designed to carry small satellites into low Earth orbit, which is a rapidly growing market. Having NASA applaud their success is going to give them a massive boost in credibility as they compete globally.
Let's talk markets now, because there is a lot of movement in the digital currency space, starting with South Korea. The Bank of Korea is preparing to launch live central bank digital currency transactions with 9 major commercial banks this September.
This is a massive step forward for central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. We have seen a lot of pilots and theoretical testing around the world, but this move in South Korea will allow actual retail consumers to trade tokenized won freely in real transactions.
So, how does this actually work for the average person? If I am a retail customer at one of these 9 banks, will I just see digital won in my banking app alongside my regular deposits?
Yes, that is the idea. The tokenized won will be integrated into existing commercial bank apps, allowing users to make payments and transfers. The Bank of Korea wants to see how the system handles high-volume, real-world transactions, and whether it can genuinely improve payment efficiency and lower transaction costs.
It is going to be a major test case for the rest of the world. If South Korea can successfully integrate a CBDC into its mainstream banking sector, you can bet other major economies will be looking to replicate their model very quickly.
Absolutely. But while central banks are moving forward with their digital plans, the decentralized finance space is dealing with another major security breach. The cross-chain protocol Allbridge Core had to halt its operations after a $1.65 million flash loan exploit on its Solana liquidity pools.
Flash loan exploits seem to be an ongoing headache for these decentralized protocols. How did the attackers pull this one off?
Essentially, the attacker took out a massive flash loan, manipulated the price of assets within the Allbridge liquidity pools on the Solana network, and then drained the funds before the system could register the imbalance. Allbridge had to pause the entire protocol to prevent further losses and is currently working on a recovery plan.
It just highlights the persistent vulnerabilities in cross-chain bridges. They are incredibly useful for moving assets between different blockchains, but they also represent a massive, high-value target for hackers.
It is definitely a setback for trust in decentralized finance. On the corporate side, though, we are seeing some fascinating real-world adoption of digital assets. In Japan, the logistics giant AZ Kamarwa is planning to adopt the yen-pegged stablecoin JPYC to pay around 2,300 business partners and subcontractors.
This is a huge deal. It is the first large-scale corporate rollout of a stablecoin for operational payments in Japan. Why is a logistics company choosing to go this route instead of traditional bank transfers?
It mostly comes down to speed and transaction fees. Traditional bank transfers, especially for thousands of subcontractors, can be slow and expensive. By using JPYC, which is pegged one-to-one with the Japanese yen, they can settle payments almost instantly and at a fraction of the cost, while still keeping the value of the payment stable.
That makes a lot of sense, especially for logistics where cash flow and quick payouts to drivers and partners are so critical. It will be interesting to see if other Japanese corporations follow suit now that the regulatory framework around stablecoins has cleared up there.
Speaking of regulatory frameworks, the Russian parliament has passed a new law to officially regulate the country's cryptocurrency market. The State Duma cleared the legislation, which now just awaits President Vladimir Putin's signature.
Russia has had a complicated relationship with crypto, sometimes wanting to ban it, other times wanting to use it to bypass international sanctions. What does this new law actually do?
It brings digital asset participants under strict state oversight. It establishes licensing requirements for exchanges and custodians, sets rules for mining operations, and outlines how crypto can be used for international trade payments. It is clear they want to control and tax the domestic market while leveraging digital assets to facilitate cross-border trade in the face of heavy Western sanctions.
So it is less about embracing the decentralized ethos of crypto and more about state control and economic survival.
Exactly. Meanwhile, in the United States, institutional interest in digital assets is surging. Spot Bitcoin ETFs recorded a 5-day inflow streak, bringing in $227 million as Bitcoin climbed past $65,000.
That is the longest daily inflow streak we have seen since May. It really shows that institutional investors are not just dipping their toes in anymore. They are consistently buying into these exchange-traded products, even at higher price levels.
Yes, the market sentiment has turned decidedly bullish. The launch of these ETFs earlier this year has made it much easier for traditional financial institutions and retail investors to get exposure to Bitcoin without having to manage private keys or deal with crypto exchanges.
And that institutional backing seems to be creating a solid floor for the price. Every time we see a sustained inflow like this, it seems to propel the market higher.
And the product offerings are expanding even further. Grayscale has just filed an S-1 registration statement with the Securities and Exchange Commission to launch the first WorldCoin ETF in the United States.
WorldCoin? That is the project co-founded by Sam Altman that uses eye scanning technology to verify digital identity, right? That is a pretty niche asset compared to Bitcoin or Ethereum.
It is, and is a bold move by Grayscale. They are clearly trying to capture the growing interest in artificial intelligence and identity-focused blockchain projects. If approved, it would allow traditional investors to bet on the growth of the WorldCoin ecosystem directly through their brokerage accounts.
It will be very interesting to see how the SEC reacts to this filing, given the unique privacy and regulatory questions surrounding WorldCoin's biometric data collection.
Coming up, we will dive into some critical cybersecurity threats targeting AI infrastructure and a fascinating discovery in deep space. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Daily Briefing. On the tech and cyber front, we are seeing a very worrying new trend where cybercriminals are targeting artificial intelligence infrastructure directly. A new Go-based ransomware strain called Inkforge has been discovered targeting Langflow servers.
Langflow is a popular tool used by developers to build applications on top of large language models. What are the attackers actually going after here?
The threat actor, known as Jade Puffer, is exploiting remote code execution vulnerabilities in Langflow to encrypt AI model weights and training datasets. They are essentially holding the core intellectual property of these AI companies hostage.
Wow, that is a massive shift in tactics. Instead of just stealing customer data or shutting down regular business servers, they're going after the actual proprietary models that these companies have spent millions of dollars training.
Exactly. If you lose your model weights, you lose your entire product. It shows that as AI becomes central to business operations, the underlying infrastructure is becoming a prime target for ransomware groups.
And that is not the only sophisticated cyber threat we are tracking. Researchers have also discovered a highly unusual malware strain called Holograph that is using Microsoft 365 calendars to hide its activities.
This one is incredibly clever and honestly a bit creepy. The espionage implant hijacks Microsoft 365 calendars and schedules events all the way out in the year 2050.
The year 2050? Why on earth would they schedule calendar events that far in the future?
Because most security monitoring tools and human administrators only look at current or near-term calendar events. By hiding their command and control instructions and stolen files inside calendar invites decades into the future, the malware can blend its traffic into legitimate Microsoft Graph API requests and completely evade detection.
That is brilliant and terrifying. It shows how attackers are.
It really highlights the need for more advanced anomaly detection that looks beyond just the immediate timeline. But the cyber threats do not stop there. Hugging Face, which is essentially the world's largest repository for open-source AI models, was recently breached by an unauthorized autonomous AI agent.
Wait, an autonomous AI agent breached Hugging Face?
Yes, it was not a human hacker manually typing in commands, but an automated AI system navigating the platform to find and exploit security gaps.
That sounds like a sci-fi movie, but it is happening right now. If AI agents can autonomously find and exploit vulnerabilities in key development hubs like Hugging Face, the speed and scale of cyber attacks could explode.
It is a massive wake-up call for the entire tech industry. Hugging Face has since secured the breach credentials and is working to harden its defenses, but this is a clear sign of the new types of threats we're going to face in the AI era.
On a completely different note, let's look at a fascinating discovery in space. Astronomers have detected signs of a potential atmosphere on an Earth-like exoplanet called LHS 1140b.
This is a massive deal for space exploration. If this is confirmed, it would mark the very first atmosphere discovered on a rocky planet outside our solar system.
That is incredible. We have found atmospheres on massive gas giants before, but finding one on a rocky, Earth-like planet is the holy grail for astronomers searching for signs of life.
Exactly. LHS 1140b is located about 48 light-years away and sits in the habitable zone of its star, meaning liquid water could exist on its surface. Having an atmosphere is a crucial ingredient for habitability. So this discovery is going to be the focus of intense study with the James Webb Space Telescope.
It makes you wonder how close we are to finally answering the question of whether we are alone in the universe.
We're getting closer every day. Back on Earth, NVIDIA has made a major move in the edge computing space, releasing Cosmos 3 Edge, a 4 billion parameter open-world model hosted on Hugging Face.
A 4 billion parameter model is quite large for an edge device. What is NVIDIA targeting with this release?
They want to bring data center-level vision AI and robotic performance directly to memory-constrained devices like industrial robots and medical equipment, without needing a constant connection to the cloud.
That is huge for things like autonomous factory robots or surgical assistants, where even a millisecond of latency from waiting for a cloud server can be dangerous. Having that intelligence running locally on the device is a game changer.
It really is. It opens up a whole new world of real-time, high-performance AI applications and environments where internet connectivity is unreliable or security requirements demand that data stays on-site.
While we're on the topic of software updates, we also need to warn our listeners about a major threat to WordPress sites. Attackers are actively exploiting a chain of two critical vulnerabilities known as WP2 shell.
This is a massive scanning campaign. The vulnerability chain allows unauthenticated remote code execution, which basically means an attacker can completely take over a vulnerable WordPress website without needing a username or password.
With WordPress powering a huge percentage of the web, this could affect millions of sites. If you run a WordPress site, you need to update your plugins and core software immediately.
Absolutely, do not wait on this one. And in a similar vein, threat actors are also actively exploiting a critical sandbox escape vulnerability in the ServiceNow AI platform.
ServiceNow is used by massive enterprises for workflow and IT management. An unauthenticated code execution vulnerability there is about as bad as it gets.
It is extremely severe. It allows attackers to bypass security boundaries and execute arbitrary code on the underlying systems. ServiceNow has released patches, and organizations need to apply them immediately to prevent their corporate networks from being compromised.
Coming up, we will wrap things up with a look at a major media merger being paused and the latest sports news, including Spain's massive World Cup celebration. We will be right back.
Welcome back. Turning to sports and culture, a federal judge has paused the proposed merger between Paramount Skydance and Warner Bros. Discovery.
This is a massive development for the media landscape. This merger would have created an absolute powerhouse in entertainment, combining massive libraries of movies, television networks, and streaming services.
The judge's intervention halts the consolidation effort for now, amid antitrust concerns and questions about how this would impact competition in the streaming era. It is a major roadblock for both companies as they try to navigate a rapidly changing industry.
Meanwhile, in Spain, the mood is incredibly celebratory. The country's World Cup champion team returned home to a massive victory parade in Madrid, with nearly 2 million fans lining the streets.
The photos and videos from Madrid are absolutely wild. The sheer scale of the crowd shows just how much this victory means to the country. It is a beautiful moment of national unity and celebration.
It really is. But over in the college sports world, we are seeing some major leadership changes. Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel has announced he will step down at the end of the calendar year following an internal investigation.
This is a significant transition for one of the most prominent athletic departments in the country. While the details of the investigation are still being closely guarded, the decision for Manuel to step down marks the end of a major era for Michigan athletics.
And finally, FIFA has launched an official investigation into Argentina players following an on-field brawl after the World Cup final.
The emotions were clearly running incredibly high, but the post-match physical confrontation has forced FIFA's hand to address disciplinary concerns and uphold standards of conduct. We will have to see what kind of penalties or suspensions come out of this inquiry.
It is always a shame when a great tournament ends with that kind of drama on the pitch.
It really is, but the passion of the game sometimes boils over. That brings us to the end of our briefing today. As we look at the world, from high-stakes trade disputes to sophisticated cyber threats, it is clear that vigilance and adaptability are the themes of the day.
Well said, Alex. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you back here tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.